All right, YouTube, this is Detroit's HPTV, coming to you out of Detroit, back with another video. Actually, this is my first video of 2025. My last video was New Year's Eve, December 31st, and we was talking about how Black Lives Matter is in the street protesting, and how they're talking about a new flu, bird flu, and how it was remnant of deja vu of 2020 when they had protests and so-called pandemics that the people had to worry about. Now, since that day, and we was talking about coincidences and if things really are coincidences, and if you believe in coincidences, we've had another change of events. We've had a cyber truck explode in front of Trump Towers in Vegas. We've had another electric truck, a F-150 Lightning truck, mow down people in the streets of Louisiana. Now, we're going to talk about coincidences since we started talking about coincidences on December 31st. Is it a coincidence they're both suspects in these two attacks? Were both military men. They both were stationed at Fort Bragg. They both went to Afghanistan together. They both chose electric trucks. Do y'all believe in that many coincidences? They was both at Fort Bragg. They both went overseas together. They picked the same day to attack the American citizens. Both of them as military men. Both of them unalived to not be questioned, possibly. But we don't really know about that one in Vegas. That body was burned beyond recognition. And that individual has a resume like Jason Bourne. He was a special mercenary type soldier. He was skilled. You know what I'm saying? But do you still believe in coincidences? Now, not only were those two guys at Fort Bragg, one of the attempts on Trump's life, that individual had ties to Fort Bragg. So you mean to tell me in 2024 we've seen two attempts or more on Trump? Then they take a Tesla Cybertruck and blow it up in front of Trump Towers? Was that a message to Elon Musk and Donald Trump? A Tesla truck? You go rent a Tesla truck and detonate it in front of Trump Tower? Was that a message? And if it was a message from who? See, the American people rejected a globalist agenda. They rejected the liberalism of the left. They rejected the transgendering of children. They rejected trafficking. They rejected the nefarious Luciferian agenda of the left, to the Democratic Party. And they're going out kicking and screaming, just like they say the devil would. You know, the devil said he was going to take as many people to hell with him as he could. And God said, all that follow you, I'll fill hell with them all. So they trying to take as many liberals with them as they can. Listen how they talking. They're calling for so-called insurrection. They're going against the will of the people. Everything they said about fascism and intolerance is coming from the left. They wanted to demonize conservatism, demonize MAGA, so that you would stand down in their face an assault of the American citizens. Is that what's going to happen? because they wanted to unalive their babies all the way to the 8th month, because they wanted this to be some type of non-gender or gender-neutral society, because they wanted to destroy the nuclear family, because they wanted to destroy this country and turn it into something that was worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. So now, the American people are under siege by these hidden individuals of the deep state. I think not. I think the Patriots gonna have an answer for it. You know what I mean? I think that they're gonna F around and find out. Because what they took as tolerance and patience and an inclination toward unity, they perceive that as cowardice from the right. You know, they put all their pundits out, the Joy Reids, the Roland Martins. They talking tough and they talking crazy, but this country is under siege. And that kind of talk sounds like sedition. It sounds traitorous. It sounds like Benedict Arnold's and Judas's to the American people. These are my thoughts on these latest events. Because I'm quite sure they've been playing out and you've been watching them. But who's trying to send a message to Trump and Elon and a message to the American people? That what, we're not safe? We're not safe. The American people are not safe. And the president-elect, you blowing up cyber trucks in front of his buildings. And yet you still coming out in the media talking about undermining the election, undermining everything that the people voted for. You want to protect the immigrants while you have the American people under siege. I don't think that the left is thinking this out clearly, or maybe your eyes have been blinded and there's a veil that you can't see, that what you're asking for is not really what you want. Because the people that's patriots not going to live in fear. They're not going to be intimidated. They're not going to let you come for their kids, their religion, and their communities. That's going to be problematic. So before I get off into this clip, I want to show you one clip first, which is Letitia James. I want you to hear her talk, and we're going to talk about it.
Hello, and Happy New Year. Earlier today, after much consideration, research, and review, my office decided to recuse itself from the investigation of the correction officers involved in the events preceding the death of Mr. Robert Brooks at Marcy Correctional Facility in Oneida County. This decision is not one that was made lightly, but we believe this is the best course of action to protect the integrity of the investigation and to ensure accountability and justice for Mr. Brooks, his family, friends, loved ones, and for all New Yorkers. My office's Division of State Counsel by law represents state agencies in legal matters, including the Department of Corrections and correction officers. My Office of Special Investigation.
I'm going to interject because these Democrats and these liberals, they think we're stupid. She's the Attorney General of the state, which means she's over their Department of Corrections and their prisons. These officers that she haven't charged yet or who haven't been charged, they have a history of assaultive behavior. There's a history of them being called the beat up squad, allegedly. She's going to tell you that 4 of them are already being prosecuted for other cases represented by her office. But they have not arrested them, which is creating civil unrest and has Black Lives Matter protesting in the streets of New York. where people are being set afire on the subways, pushed in front of trains. And this is the Attorney General. And Kathy Hochul, the governor. These liberals who have spent the latter part of this Biden and Harris administration prosecuting Donald Trump, the president-elect. But she has not arrested any of the officers that's on tape unaliving this man. But she spent almost her whole tenure as Attorney General trying to prosecute Donald Trump. See, this is what I'm talking about, the hypocrisy of the left and their interference with the will of the people and their treasonous behaviors. She's talking about she's stepping down because she can't prosecute people in her own agency because there's going to be more revealed. She waited 3 weeks to reveal that they knew they had a tape of the actual crime. And no one's still been arrested. Really? Letitia James? You really think you can get in front of us with your stoic attitude? See, we tired of that. She can't be criticized because if you criticize her, you misogynistic or racist. But they got this DEI hire, this incompetent person, this tool of liberalism in the left who can't even charge and prosecute people caught committing a crime on tape, on video. The whole country has seen the video. You have Black Lives Matter protesting in the street about an arrest. See, is she an agent of chaos? Let's listen to her.
It investigates matters where an officer of the law may have caused the death of a civilian. As part of our Office of Special Investigation cases, we do internal conflicts checks. After obtaining video and identifying the officers involved in the incident, we conducted the standard check. 4 of the correction officers under investigation in the Robert Brooks matter are currently defendants in other matters and are being represented by lawyers in the...
4 of them officers are already being defended by her office for other crimes. See, Letitia James, Kathy Hochul, Newsom, a lot of these liberals, these Democrats, are exactly what they accuse the conservative of. They are threats to their own so-called democracy. She's sitting here trying to double talk and tell you why her office has to recuse themselves from prosecuting people that they have on tape. Because this is common practice, allegedly. That these officers, this is not their first rodeo. Let's listen to her some more.
Office of the Attorney General. While we are confident in the firewalls set up between the Division of State Counsel and the Office of Special Investigation, even the possibility or mere appearance of a conflict could tie up a potential prosecution in lengthy legal challenges, or get a potential prosecution outright dismissed. And I will not allow justice to be delayed or denied because of a conflict. Earlier today, we filed papers in Onondaga County Supreme Court under County Law Section 701 to appoint Onondaga County District Attorney William J. Fitzpatrick as a special prosecutor in this matter. When a prosecutor is unable to take a case, County Law Section 701 allows for the appointment of a district attorney in the same judicial department. District Attorney Fitzpatrick has served Onondaga County for over 30 years. His office is well-resourced to handle this complex and large investigation, and I thank him for taking on this case. Additionally, my office's Division of State Counsel will not represent the Department of Correction and/or its officers in this investigation. Again, This decision was made with the utmost respect for the integrity of this investigation, and we will ensure that there will not be any delays. My Office of Special Investigation will hand over all records to the District Attorney's Office immediately. My office has spoken with representatives of Mr. Brooks's family to explain this decision. And I want to take this opportunity, again, to express my sincerest condolences to them during this unimaginable, difficult time. It is critically important that justice is served. And this decision ensures that it will be.
The stoicism and optics on that was terrible. This is that DEI hires type stuff. That Fannie Willis type stuff. That Roland Martin, that liberal, like the worst of us that comes out of black community is in these political positions and are used as tools of Democrats to work against the general aspirations of the entire country. Really? Doesn't this seem like that's getting old? Especially in light of what we're seeing on the global stage. This guy says he represents ISIS on the guns. They had an ISIS flag. And the other one that they say blew up the truck in Vegas, guess what? He was over stationed in Germany and allegedly helping Ukraine. They had pictures of him with a Ukraine shirt on. What's really going on? You got one guy down in Louisiana say he represents ISIS, so he's attacking the citizens. You got another guy in Vegas that's been helping Ukraine, and he's attacking Elon Musk in the presidency. While these liberals that hold power are still undermining the safety and environments that the citizens live in, playing political games with people's lives. Let's get off into the second clip.
Breaking this morning, federal officials are calling it a deliberate act of terror as the FBI is conducting searches across multiple states. 15 people are dead, many more injured after a man plowed his truck through crowded New Orleans streets just after the new year. 3 major questions this morning. Were there any accomplices? Was this attack tied to the Cybertruck explosion outside a Trump hotel in Las Vegas? There are notable similarities. Was this attack actually directed by ISIS or just inspired by the terror group? Just a short time ago, we learned the New Orleans attacker pleaded guilty to DUI.
Now see, that's a word game. Inspired or orchestrated. See, they continue to want the American people to be dumb. It's an ideology. And once an ideology is embraced, it becomes part and parcel of that movement. We can see that in our own country with the liberal left. You see how intolerant they are? They act as if they want to succeed from the country because they couldn't get Kamala Harris in. And they're in lockstep with that ideology, regardless of how idiotic it is. They have embraced it. They're going out kicking and screaming. They'd rather see the whole country fall than admit that they bet on the wrong horse. This is where we at in this country. They're going to do everything they can to create chaos between now and January the 20th. So just be patient and watch.
Charges in 2015, and police shared new details about a series of videos he allegedly recorded, one of which includes a pledge to ISIS. This morning, we're also learning more about the victims as witnesses now describe what they saw.
Now, let me ask you something. And I want you to think about this. We already know the federal government and the CIA, we know they are international snoopers. Spy on everything and everybody. You think they didn't know that these things were in the making? They know everything else, but they didn't know that these things was going on. Do you believe that?
The gunshots, and everyone started running, and they ended up locking us in the building, and they shut all the doors, told us to get down. And when we came outside, that's when we saw the truck that was crashed right outside where we were at. And we saw the first responders trying to save a young man. And they were working on him for so long, and we were just hoping and praying he was going to survive. But there was no life in him at all.
Now to the Tesla Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas, just outside the doors of a Trump International hotel there. Surveillance video showing the powerful blast. Authorities are still trying to figure out if that was an act of terror or, as John mentioned, somehow linked to the attack in New Orleans. CNN's Veronica Miracle has more on that story.
Our John Miller is telling us he has spoken to multiple law enforcement officials who say that the driver of the Cybertruck has a military background. Now, law enforcement officials say they know the name of this driver who died in the explosion, but they are not going to be releasing the identity of that driver until they notify the next of kin. We understand that this driver was in Las Vegas for about an hour driving around the Strip before pulling up to Trump Tower before that explosion happened. And authorities say the driver rented the Cybertruck in Colorado via the Turo app before driving down to Las Vegas. Video released by law enforcement shows explosives that were contained inside the truck, which included fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel.
Oh, and I forgot one more other coincidence. Both of the drivers of these two attacks used the same app, Turo. So you mean to tell me they were at Fort Bragg together, got deployed overseas together, used the same app, and did an attack on the same day? That's a lot of coincidences. And we talked about that in 2024. In 2024, we said we was going to stop believing in coincidences and start seeing that there are patterns that are being employed upon the American people. Call it a deep state, call it globalist, call it whoever. But these attacks on our safety and our stability and our mentality is psychological warfare along with asymmetric warfare against the people of this country.
All of that was connected to a detonation system that was controlled by the driver. And the sheriff pointed out, which is really incredible, how the Cybertruck actually contained the explosion. The way that it was built forced the explosion to go upwards instead of outwards, which meant that the glass from Trump Tower was not broken. And 7 people nearby were injured, but with minor injuries. All of them are okay. They've all been released from the hospital. The driver did die, and Las Vegas police believe that this was an isolated incident. They are not yet willing to say if this was, in fact, connected to what happened in New Orleans, but it is quite unusual that both the drivers in these incidents rented their cars from Turo. We do have a statement from Turo, and they said they're cooperating with these investigations, but they also said that neither of the drivers had criminal backgrounds, which would have flagged them as security threats.
Investigators are searching for any possible links between the two New Year's Day attacks, the one in New Orleans and the one in Las Vegas.
Do I think it's a coincidence? I don't know, but what I can tell you is we're absolutely investigating any connectivity to what happened in New Orleans, as well as other attacks that have been occurring around the world. We're not ruling anything out yet.
All right, with us now, CNN senior law enforcement analyst, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. So the similarities are these. Both were using electric vehicles rented from this ride-share / user-to-user rental outfit, Turo. Military backgrounds, both drivers, explosives on both trucks, Andy. Possible it's just a coincidence? What do you see there?
Still possible that that's just a coincidence. But honestly, John, you have attacks occurring, vehicle-borne attacks occurring on the same day in different cities. that alone gets you a very intensive investigation to determine whether or not there's any connectivity between those two actors. And that could be anything from...
And see, this is another reason that CNN, MSNBC, and mainstream media are finished. Because at this point, we know that both of them were soldiers at Fort Bragg and were deployed together. We know that. There is no way that there are this many coincidences and it's not simultaneous interaction or collusion. Allegedly, right? They were both at Fort Bragg, deployed overseas at the same time. Both used electric trucks. One attacks the American citizens, the other one attacks President-elect's place and sends a message with a Cybertruck. See, the only thing that we have to be lucky about is that he didn't do his homework on that Cybertruck. Elon make a mean truck. Say what you want to say about that Cybertruck. Say what you want to say about it. But it contained those mortars and that explosion. That's not, so yeah.
Interacting and planning and preparing together to execute those attacks, or it could be something as simple as a infrequent contact over social media that just brought them together as like-minded people. If there's any connection between the two of them, I am confident that our law enforcement and intelligence folks will uncover that, but they've got to look hard for it.
We heard from the FBI supervisory special agent in New Orleans, who said, "We do not believe Jabbar," that's the New Orleans killer, "acted alone." That's a direct, very direct comment there, Andy. What do you think gives them so much certainty at this point?
Yeah, it's really a bold thing to say, I think, this early in the investigation. There was a lot of talk yesterday about 4 other individuals who were captured on video surveillance, we believe somewhere near the site of one of these other IEDs that was recovered yesterday. That's been ruled out. So we still don't know if the FBI is quite as confident now that those 4 people have been ruled out about the presence of others. Nevertheless, there are other indicators here that could be forcing the investigators to broaden their search. And that is simply the fact that if these other suspected IEDs that were placed around the French Quarter are in fact connected to the driver of the truck, then there's a logistical challenge here. They're trying to determine, would it be possible for him to have created and placed those devices and then gotten in the truck and driven to his destined attack? So it's simple logistical questions like that could be compelling the investigators to think, this person probably had someone or some group of people helping him execute the attack.
There was the ISIS flag found in this vehicle in New Orleans. At a minimum, that gives reason to say this was inspired by ISIS. That's what we heard from the president. Andy, how do you find if it was more than that? More than inspired, perhaps directed. In your experience, and there were attacks during your time in the FBI like this, inspired by ISIS. In your experience, does ISIS get involved in these actions directly in the United States?
It's a great question, John. So ISIS has definitely been very forward-leaning in trying to recruit what we would think of typically as lone actors to strike out in acts of terrorism on their behalf in their home country. So without ever traveling to Syria, without ever meeting an actual ISIS member in person, without receiving specified training, they do that through the propaganda that they distribute around the world on the internet. So it really becomes a question of how do we think about those people who are inspired to act on ISIS's behalf? Typically, we refer to them simply as ISIS-inspired attacks. We think of that as an act of international terrorism, even though those folks may never have associated directly. But one of the ways that ISIS motivates them is to literally put out an instruction manual of how to do it. We know that ISIS in the past has advised their followers to obtain large, heavy vehicles, to drive those vehicles into crowded areas at events, to run over and kill as many people as they can, and to also carry a secondary weapon so that when the truck is inevitably stopped at some point, the driver will be able to get out and continue the killing with a gun or a knife or some sort of bladed weapon. So when we look at the details of this attack, it very closely matches exactly what ISIS has essentially asked its followers to do in their home country. So I think the connection here on the inspired level is very good. To determine whether or not he's an actual operative who had contact and received direction from ISIS, that requires the community to go deep into its intelligence holdings, to look at data sets like this data set we acquire through FISA Section 702 to see if there have ever been communication connections between this actor and any of the known or suspected terrorists we are following overseas.
Very quickly, Andy, any reason for concern today? There were 2 truck explosions. Could there be more? The Sugar Bowl scheduled for New Orleans this afternoon.
John, I'm a lifelong counterterrorism guy, so there's always a concern. That's where I start in this mapping.
I'm ending on there. Always a concern. But this Biden administration and Biden-Harris administration, it went out just the way it was, with the unraveling of American society, with the liberalism and inclusion that has radicalized so many people against American culture. The radicalization of people against American culture is a leftist communist agenda. We can't keep ignoring it. They was talking about on the left not having Thanksgiving and not celebrating with conservatives, like they had a moral high ground and had the righteous indignation. Who wants to break bread with these treasonous people? Think about it. They anti-God, anti-country, traitorous behavior, making us more vulnerable. They give comfort to the radicalization of others against us. Think about that. Well, this is Detroit's HPTV, signing to you out of Detroit. Today is Friday. Hope you enjoy your weekend. And these developments, they just keep coming, So, support the nonprofit Detroit's Black Thought and Ash Collective. The Cash App is in the channel description. As always, salute to all patriots. And I'm sure by now y'all know to keep y'all head on the swivel. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.